faceless old man in the house stinks because of you.
The handle's broken.
Stop making excuses.
You done?
You're the problem in this house.
Not for long.
My daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eye at 3 a.m. and said, "You're a worthless old man. This whole house stinks because of you." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. But by the next morning, I made sure she understood exactly whose house she was living in. My name is Richard Hayes. I'm 67 years old, broad-shouldered but slightly stooped from decades of construction work with rough hands that still carry the memory of every beam I've ever lifted. My hair has gone completely silver, cut short and neat out of habit, and my face lined, weathered, has the kind of calm people mistake for weakness. It isn't. It's patience. Or at least it used to be. That night, at exactly 3:02 a.m., I woke up with the familiar stiffness in my joints and made my way down the hallway. The house was silent, the deep, heavy kind of silence that presses against your ears. I kept my steps light out of habit. I've always believed that if you live with others, you don't disturb their rest. The bathroom light flicked on softly. I did what I needed to do, then reached for the flush handle. It stuck. I frowned, pressing it again. Loose, useless. I had meant to fix it 2 days ago, but I'd been putting it off. Strange, considering I used to rebuild entire kitchens in less time than it takes most people to complain about one. I pressed it again. The water barely moved. Then, the hallway light snapped on. Seriously? Again? Her voice came sharp and cold before I even turned around. Emily Carter. My daughter-in-law stood in the doorway, arms crossed tightly against her chest. She was 32, tall and slender, with straight blonde hair that fell perfectly over her shoulders even at this hour. She had the kind of polished beauty that always looked deliberate, never effortless. Her eyes, though blue, sharp, calculating, were where her real personality lived. Controlled, critical, always measuring. "You don't even know how to flush?" she said, her voice rising just enough to cut through the quiet. "God, Richard. The whole house smells because of you." For a moment, I didn't respond. Not because I didn't hear her, but because something in me paused. I stood there, one hand still resting on the broken handle, staring at the floor tiles I had installed myself 15 years ago, back when this house was just a blueprint and a promise. "I told Kevin about the handle," I said finally, keeping my voice low, steady. "It's loose." "Excuses," she snapped immediately, pinching the bridge of her nose like I'd just proven something. "It's always something with you. It's not that hard. You flush, it goes away. Basic." Kevin Hayes. My son was asleep just down the hall. 35. Tall like me, but leaner, softer in posture. Dark brown hair, usually messy, and eyes that avoided conflict more often than not. He had always been a good kid, kind-hearted, but somewhere along the way life taught him that staying quiet was easier than standing up, and tonight he stayed quiet. I'll take care of it," I said. "You better," Emily replied, already turning away. "We both have work in the morning. We can't keep dealing with this situation." That word lingered longer than anything else. Situation. Like I was one. Her heels tapped lightly against the hallway floor as she walked away, disappearing back into the master bedroom, the room I had given them when they moved in 2 years ago. "You need the space," I had said. Funny how quickly people accept comfort. The door closed, not slammed, just final. I stood there for a few seconds longer, listening to the silence return. Then I looked down at the toilet again. The water hadn't done its job, so I reached for the brush. I cleaned it, thoroughly, methodically. No rushing, no frustration. Just the way I used to finish a job site, because when something has your name on it, you leave it better than you found it. Not for her, for me. By the time I finished, the bathroom was spotless, the mirror clear, the sink dry. No trace of what had just happened, at least not on the surface. When I turned off the light and stepped back into the hallway, something felt different. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. I walked slowly back to my room, the smallest one in the house. My choice. Always my choice. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands, turning them slightly under the dim light. These hands built this place. Every wall, every pipe, every inch. And yet, at 3 a.m., I had just been made to feel like I didn't belong in it. I didn't go back to sleep because something had already woken up. Morning came quietly, but not gently. I hadn't slept, not really. I sat on the edge of my bed until the darkness thinned into gray, then pale light slipped through the curtains like nothing had happened. But something had. I stood, straightened my shirt, and stepped into the hallway. The smell of coffee reached me first. Emily was already in the kitchen. She stood by the counter, back straight, phone in one hand, coffee mug in the other. Even in the morning, she looked put together, pressed blouse, fitted pants, her blonde hair tied back in a clean, efficient style. She had the presence of someone used to being in control, not loud, not chaotic, just firm. Like everything and everyone should fall in line. She didn't look at me. "Make sure you rinse the sink after you use it," she said, still scrolling. "Mom, there were water spots yesterday." Not a greeting, not even a glance. Just instruction. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Black. Same way for the last 30 years. Then Kevin walked in. My son looked like he hadn't slept well either. His dark hair was slightly messy, tie hanging loose around his neck, shirt half tucked. 35 years old, but this morning he looked younger and more tired than he should have. There were faint shadows under his eyes, the kind that don't come from one bad night, but from something heavier. Stress. "Morning," he muttered, barely looking up. I nodded once. "Morning." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kevin cleared his throat. "About last night," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Emily didn't mean it like that. We were just tired." Emily didn't react, didn't confirm, didn't deny. I took a sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch just enough. "It came out clear," I said. Kevin winced just slightly. He leaned back against the counter, Tara folding his arms like he didn't know what to do with them. "It's just been a lot lately," he added. "Work, finances." I knew what that meant. Kevin had never been good with money. 2 years ago, he'd gotten caught up in cryptocurrency fast gains, big promises. He talked about it like it was the future. Then the market dropped. Hard. And whatever he had saved, whatever he borrowed, went with it. He never said the full number out loud. He didn't have to. Emily finally set her mug down. "We just need things to run smoothly," she said, her tone calm, controlled like she was explaining a policy to an employee. "No surprises, no disruptions. We both have responsibilities." I looked at her. Really looked this time. It wasn't anger in her voice. It was expectation. Like the house, the routine, the support. It was all just part of the system, something that should function without question. "Understood," I said, and I meant it. Just not the way she thought. Kevin glanced at me, a relief flickering across his face like the situation had been resolved, like everything could go back to normal. But nothing about this felt normal anymore. Emily picked up her bag, checking her reflection briefly in the microwave door. "We're running late," she said. "Kevin, keys." He grabbed them from the counter, hesitating for half a second like he might say something else to me. He didn't. "See you tonight, Dad," he said, already moving toward the door. Emily followed, her heels tapping sharply against the floor. "Try to keep things in order today," she added, almost casually. The door closed behind them, and just like that, the house was quiet again. But this time it wasn't the same kind of quiet. I stood there in the kitchen, coffee in hand, looking around the space I had built piece by piece. The cabinets, the table, the floor beneath my feet. Everything solid, everything mine. And yet somewhere along the way I had become optional. I set the cup down slowly. Like for the first time I wasn't thinking about fixing anything. I was thinking about changing something. The house stayed quiet long after the front door closed. I didn't move right away. I stood in the kitchen, listening, not for sound, but for the absence of it. No voices, no footsteps, no instructions, just space. Then I turned and walked back to my room. The bottom drawer of my nightstand slid open with a soft, familiar sound. Inside was a worn leather notebook, dark brown, edges softened by years of use. I picked it up, running my thumb along the cover before opening it. Names, numbers, dates, everything I owned or had ever paid for was in here. I started flipping through the pages slowly. The couch in the living room, paid in full 15 years ago. The dining table, my father's, repaired twice by my own hands, appliances installed during the remodel 5 years back. Even the smaller things, fixtures, tools, kitchenware, each one accounted for. I stopped on one page, Kevin's car, a silver SUV, 3 years old now. I had co-signed the loan when he said he needed something reliable for work. Just until I get back on my feet, he had said. I ended up covering half the payments. Insurance, too. I closed the notebook halfway. Not out of frustration, out of clarity. A voice came back to me then, low, steady, familiar. Rick, you keep giving like this. One day you're going to wake up and realize they think it's theirs. Mike Turner, 70 years old, tall, still standing straight despite a bad knee from years in construction. Gray beard, always neatly trimmed. He had the kind of eyes that saw things early before they became problems. We'd worked together for over 2 decades. He was more than a colleague. He was the kind of man who told you the truth even when you didn't want to hear it. I hadn't wanted to hear it back then. Now I understood it perfectly. I set the notebook down on the bed and reached for my phone. There was no hesitation. The number was still saved. Tom's Moving and Storage. Tom Bennett, no relation, was in his early 50s, broad and solid like the trucks he drove. Short cropped hair, always wearing a faded company jacket, even in summer. Reliable, efficient. And most importantly, he didn't ask unnecessary questions. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Tom, it's Richard Hayes. A pause, then recognition. Well, I'll be damned. Been a while, Rick. What can I do for you? I walked slowly back into the hallway, looking around as I spoke. I need a truck. Another pause, slightly longer this time. How big? I stopped in the center of the living room. The couch, the table, the cabinets, everything in view. All of it, I said. Silence on the other end, then a low exhale. That's not a small job. I know. You moving out? I considered the question. No, I said. I'm moving things out. Another pause. Tom didn't push further. All right, he said finally. I can be there at 9. Got a crew ready. That works. We hung up without anything else. I lowered the phone and stood there for a moment, letting the decision settle. There was no anger in it, no rush, just structure. I moved through the house after that, not like a man wandering, but like I used to walk job sites. Slow, observant, precise. The living room came first. I ran my hand along the back of the couch, still solid, still mine. The dining table, same. Kitchen appliances, mine. Even the food in the refrigerator, I had bought it 2 days ago. I opened the door briefly, looked inside, then closed it again. Not yet. Back in my room, I picked up the notebook one more time and flipped to the back pages. Utilities, electricity, internet, insurance, all under my name. At the time, it had seemed easier that way. Now it looked like something else entirely. Control. I sat down on the edge of the bed again, resting the notebook beside me. This wasn't a reaction. It wasn't about last night alone. It was about everything that had led to it. Every assumption, every silence. Every moment I let something slide. I looked down at my hands, same work, different understanding. By the time I stood up again, the decision wasn't forming anymore. It was finished. At exactly 8:58 a.m., I heard the low rumble of a truck outside. Right on time. I stood by the front window and looked out. A large white moving truck idled at the curb, slightly worn but steady like it had done this job 1,000 times before. The company name, Tom's Moving and Storage, was faded across the side. The passenger door opened first. Tom stepped out. He looked exactly the same. Early 50s, broad chest, thick forearms, the kind of build that comes from years of lifting, not a gym. His dark hair had gone mostly gray, cropped short, and his face carried that permanent look of someone who had seen enough to not be surprised by much. Behind him came 2 younger men. The first was a tall black man, maybe 26, lean but strong, wearing a sleeveless work shirt and gloves tucked into his back pocket. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, observant. The second was shorter, stockier, mid-20s, Hispanic, with a buzz cut and a quick, efficient way of moving. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They were good. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside. "Richard," Tom said, extending his hand. "Tom." We shook firm, familiar. He glanced toward the house, then back at me. "You sure about this?" I followed his gaze for a moment. The house looked the same. Solid, clean, unchanged. "Yeah," I said, "I'm sure." He nodded once, then turned to his crew. "All right, let's get to work." We stepped inside together. I didn't give a speech, didn't explain. I just walked them through the house once. "This goes," I said, resting a hand on the couch. They moved immediately. No questions. The tall one, his name was Marcus, I learned quickly took one side, while the stockier guy, Louise, took the other. They lifted the couch smoothly, carrying it out with practiced coordination. The sound it made sliding briefly across the floor was soft, controlled, like everything else in this moment. Next came the coffee table, then the dining chairs. Piece by piece, the house began to change, not chaotically, not violently, methodically. I stood near the doorway, arms relaxed at my sides, watching. No anger, no regret, just movement. At one point, Marcus paused, glancing around the living room as more space opened up. "You sure they know about this?" he asked, not confrontational, just curious. I met his eyes. "They will." He held my gaze for a second, then nodded. "All right." And just like that, the question was over. They went back to work. The dining table took longer, solid oak, heavy. I watched them lift it carefully, adjusting their grip to avoid scraping the floor. I remembered fixing one of its legs years ago. Still held. Still mine. In the hallway, I stopped briefly. There were photos on the wall, family moments frozen in time, birthdays, holidays. A younger version of Kevin standing beside me, holding a hammer too big for his hands. I reached up and took one down. The frame was simple, glass slightly worn. I looked at it for a moment longer than I expected. This didn't belong in a truck. Not everything needed to be taken. Some things stayed. I set it gently against the wall. In the kitchen, they worked faster. Appliances stayed, but everything else, utensils, cookware, small items, went into boxes. Luis moved efficiently, labeling each one with quick strokes of a marker. Marcus handled the heavier loads. Tom stayed near the entrance, tracking progress with quiet precision. No chaos, no raised voices, just work. By mid-morning, the difference was undeniable. The living room echoed, the dining area was bare, the kitchen felt hollow. I walked through it slowly, hands in my pockets, noticing details that had been hidden before. The space between walls, the way sound carried, the absence of weight. This was what the house actually was. A structure. Nothing more. Nothing less. Tom stepped up beside me, wiping his hands on a cloth. "We're about halfway loaded," he said. I nodded. "Keep going." He studied me for a second. Didn't ask anything else. Didn't need to. Outside, another piece of furniture disappeared into the truck. Inside, the house grew quieter, not empty, just honest. By the time the truck was nearly full, the house had already begun to feel different. Not empty, just stripped down to its structure. Tom and his crew moved outside with the last of the larger pieces, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was clear. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. There were no missed calls yet. That would come later. I scrolled through my contacts, stopping at a name I had seen 100 times before, but never really thought about. Everline Internet Services. I pressed call. A woman answered on the third ring. Her voice was professional, steady, the kind of tone trained to handle routine requests. "Thank you for calling Everline. This is Jessica speaking. How may I assist you today?" Jessica, late 20s, I imagined. Clear voice, controlled pace, efficient. I'd like to suspend my service," I said. "Of course, sir. May I ask the reason for the suspension?" "Extended absence," I replied. "No one will be using the property." A brief pause. Keyboard clicks in the background. "I understand. Would you like to maintain a reduced plan or fully disconnect the service?" "Everything off." Another pause, slightly longer this time. "All right, sir. I can process that immediately. Your internet service will be disconnected within the hour." "Thank you." I ended the call without waiting for anything else. One step. Just one. I opened the leather notebook again, flipping to the next section. Utilities. Electric. I dialed the number. This time, the representative was a man older, maybe mid-40s. His voice had that slight roughness of someone who had been on the job a long time. City Electric, this is Robert. Richard Hayes, I need to schedule a temporary service termination. For when? Tomorrow morning, first available. A pause. Everything all right at the property? I considered the question. Yes, I said. Everything is exactly as it should be. He didn't push further. All right, we'll have someone out at 8 a.m. Appreciate it. Call ended. 2 steps. I sat down at the kitchen counter, placing the notebook in front of me. Accounts. Banking. This part required a little more attention. I dialed the number and waited. The woman who answered this time spoke with a polished, careful tone trained for sensitive matters. Good afternoon, Mr. Hayes. This is Karen from Account Services. How can I assist you today? I need to make changes to my account. Of course. What kind of changes? Authorized users, I said. I want them removed. A pause. Kevin Hayes and Emily Carter? Yes. Another pause, short, precise. I'll need to verify your identity. I'm ready. We went through the process. Security questions, confirmation codes, no hesitation. When it was done, her voice shifted slightly, still professional, but more deliberate. The authorized users have been removed. Any cards issued under their names will be inactive, effective immediately. Good. Would you like to replace your own cards as a precaution? No. A beat. Is there anything else I can assist you with today? Yes, I said. Cancel any recurring transfers. All of them? All of them. Typing. Then, it's done. Thank you. I ended the call and placed the phone face down on the counter. 3 steps. I leaned back slightly, letting the silence settle again. For years, everything had flowed without interruption. Bills paid, accounts active, cards working, groceries stocked. No one asked how, no one checked why. They didn't need to. Because I was there. I stood up and walked toward the hallway, glancing once more at the rooms now stripped of their weight. That's when I remembered something. A delivery box. Emily's. It sat near the side table unopened. I recognized the label. High-end clothing brand. Not cheap. And I picked it up briefly, feeling the lightness of it. She had ordered it 2 days ago, using my card. I set it back down exactly where it was. Didn't open it. Didn't move it. It wasn't about taking anything from them. It was about removing what had been holding everything up. Back in the kitchen, I closed the notebook. Kevin had never really known the full picture, not the accounts, not the payments, not the structure. He had relied on it the same way you rely on electricity. You don't think about it until it's gone. And Emily, she had treated it like entitlement, not support, not responsibility, just expected. I stood there for a moment longer looking at the space, then I nodded once. The system hadn't collapsed. It had been turned off. The first sign was the car pulling into the driveway earlier than usual. I wasn't there to see it, but I could picture it clearly. Kevin drove a little too fast when he was stressed, hands tight on the wheel, jaw set, eyes fixed ahead like he could outrun whatever was waiting. 35, tall, lean, always trying to carry more than he knew how to handle. Not careless, just unprepared. Emily sat beside him, phone in hand, posture upright even in motion. She had that controlled composure 32, sharp features, always put together. The kind of woman who believed problems could be managed. Until they couldn't. The front door opened, then stopped. Silence. Kevin stepped in first. What the? His voice cut off mid-sentence. The living room. Empty. No couch, no table, no television. Just open space and echo. Emily walked in behind him. Her heels clicking against the bare floor. The sound carried farther than it should have. What happened? She asked, her voice tight, not loud, not yet. Kevin took a few steps forward, turning slowly. Dad? He called out. No answer. The house didn't respond anymore. Emily moved past him, faster now, heading toward the kitchen. She stopped at the doorway. You've got to be kidding me. Cabinets open, countertops bare, the refrigerator still there, but when she opened it, the inside was nearly empty. What is this? She said, turning sharply. Kevin ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the living room. I don't know. Maybe he's moving things around. Maybe... Moving things? Emily cut in. Kevin, everything is gone. He didn't answer, because he knew. His phone buzzed. A message. He glanced down, then frowned. What? He tried again. Same result. Card declined. Emily blinked once. That's not possible. She stepped forward, pulling out her own wallet. Smooth, quick motion. Yet controlled. She dialed a number while handing her card to Kevin. "Try mine." He did. Another attempt, another pause, then declined. Emily froze. Not dramatic, not loud, just still. "That's a system error," she said quickly, already speaking into the phone. "Yes, I'm calling about a transaction issue." She stopped, listening. Her expression shifted slightly. Less certainty, more tension. Kevin was already trying again, swiping, checking, refreshing. Nothing worked. Then the Wi-Fi router blinked once, twice, then went dark. "No internet," he muttered. Emily lowered the phone slowly. "What did they say?" Kevin asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, "They said the account was deactivated." Silence. Kevin let out a breath, longer this time. Okay, we just call him. He probably..." Before he could finish, there was a knock at the door. A delivery driver stood outside. Mid-30s, average build, wearing a brown uniform, tablet in hand. His expression was polite. He'll practice the kind of face you see on someone who deals with customers all day. "Delivery for Emily Carter," he said. Emily stepped forward quickly, relief flashing across her face. "Yes, that's me." He handed her the terminal. "Just need a signature and payment confirmation." She swiped, waited. The driver glanced down, then up. "I'm sorry, ma'am, it didn't go through." Emily blinked again. "Try again." He did, same result. Kevin stepped in, handing over his card. "Use this one." Another attempt. Another shake of the head. "I'm sorry," the driver said, stepping back slightly. "Payment's not going through. I'll have to return the order." Emily didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't demand. She just stood there, staring at the screen. That was new. Kevin looked at her. Really looked this time. And something shifted. Not anger, not blame. Understanding. He turned slowly, looking around the empty house again. The missing furniture, the dead router, and the declined cards. It all lined up. "He did this," Kevin said quietly. Emily didn't deny it, didn't react. For the first time since I had known her, she had nothing to say. Kevin exhaled slowly, running both hands over his face. "I should have," he started, then stopped. Because the rest of the sentence didn't matter anymore. They both stood there in the silence. No system, no support, no assumptions left, just reality. And for the first time, they understood it. The message I sent was simple. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Harris & Cole Law Offices. Be there. No explanation, no emotion, just direction. They arrived early. I was already inside. The office sat on the third floor of a quiet downtown building, clean lines, polished wood, the faint scent of paper and leather. The kind of place where things are decided, not discussed. Michael Harris stood by the window when I walked in earlier. Mike, 71, tall, lean, still carrying himself like the contractor he used to be before law school. Gray hair combed back, glasses low on his nose, sharp eyes that missed nothing. We had known each other for over 30 years, built houses together once. Now he built cases. "You're sure about this, Rick?" he asked. "Yes." That was all it took. At 9:50, the door opened. Kevin stepped in first. Yeah, he looked worse than the day before. Shirt wrinkled, eyes tired, shoulders slightly hunched forward. 35, but this morning he carried the weight of something heavier, realization. Emily followed. She looked different. Same posture, same precise appearance. Blonde hair tied back, fitted blazer, heels, but something in her expression had changed. The sharp edge was still there, but it wasn't leading anymore. It was contained. "Dad," Kevin said. I nodded once. "Kevin." Emily hesitated, then, "Richard." Not cold, not warm, just careful. We sat. No small talk. Mike slid a folder across the table toward them. "Mr. Hayes has asked me to formalize the current situation," he said, voice calm, measured. "Everything you need to understand is in here." Kevin opened it first. Emily leaned closer, scanning the pages. Ownership documents, property title, utility records, account statements, every line clear, every number exact. Yeah, Kevin's brow tightened as he turned the pages. This is everything? He asked. Yes, I said. His hand paused on the paper. For 2 years? Yes. He leaned back slowly, processing. Emily didn't move right away. Then she spoke. We thought we were contributing, she said, her voice controlled but softer than I had ever heard it. I met her eyes. You thought wrong. No anger, just fact. Silence settled over the table. Mike adjusted his glasses slightly, then continued. There is no lease agreement, he said. No formal arrangement. You have been residing in the property under Mr. Hayes's permission. Kevin swallowed. And now, I answered, that permission has changed. Emily's posture shifted just slightly. Richard, about what I said the other night. I didn't let her finish. It was clear, I said. Her mouth closed, not interrupted, stopped. For the first time, she didn't push back. Kevin looked down at his hands, rubbing them together slowly. I should have said something, he admitted quietly. Yes, I said. Again, no lecture, just truth. Mike slid another document forward. This is a formal notice, he said. You are being given 30 days to vacate the property. Kevin read it. Then again, 30 days. It landed. Emily leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. We'll need time, she said. You have it, I replied. Another silence. Not tense, not loud, just final. Kevin closed the folder carefully, like it carried weight beyond paper. He looked at me, not as a son asking for help, as a man trying to understand where he stood. Is there anything we can do? He asked. I considered that, then shook my head. No. Emily lowered her gaze. Her voice, when it came again, was quieter. We didn't think you'd go this far. I held her eyes. I didn't think you'd forget this much. That was it. No raised voices, no argument, no negotiation. Just lines drawn clearly. Mike gathered the documents, placing them back into order. If there are no further questions, he said, we can proceed with signatures acknowledging receipt. They signed, one after the other, Kevin first, then Emily. Ink on paper, simple, permanent. When it was done, no one moved right away. Not because there was more to say, but because there wasn't. Kevin stood first. All right, he said quietly. Emily followed. She paused for half a second, like she might say something else. She didn't. They turned and walked out. I stayed seated, hands resting on the table, looking at nothing in particular, not relief, not satisfaction, just balance. 3 months changed everything. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily, like something finally adjusting back into place after being pushed too far. Kevin and Emily moved out within the 30 days. I didn't watch it happen, didn't stand in the doorway, didn't supervise. That part wasn't mine anymore. What I did hear through Mike, through quiet updates, was enough. Kevin had taken a full-time job again, not something flashy, not quick money, a logistics position at a mid-sized company, long hours, steady pay, the kind of work that required showing up every day and earning every dollar. He needed that. He had always been capable. He just hadn't been forced to prove it. The debt didn't disappear, but it started shrinking, bit by bit. Emily found work too. That surprised me. She had always carried herself like someone who managed life, not participated in it. But now she worked in a retail office downtown, entry-level, structured, measured, the kind of environment where effort shows immediately. From what I heard, she kept to herself, focused, no complaints. That was new. As for me, I left the city. Not far, just far enough. A small coastal town about 40 minutes away. Quiet streets, open air, the kind of place where people nod when they pass you, even if they don't know your name. The house I rented sat close enough to the water that I could hear the waves at night. No history there, no weight, just space. The first few weeks were simple. Morning walks, coffee by the window, silence that didn't need to be filled. Then I found the workshop. It wasn't much at first, a small rented space behind an old hardware store. The owner, a man named Daniel Brooks, early 60s, stocky, who always smelled faintly of sawdust, had been trying to keep it running, but didn't have the time anymore. "You ever teach?" he asked me one afternoon. I looked at the tools, at the benches, At the unfinished projects? Not officially, I said. He nodded. Might be time. So I stayed. Started small. A few young guys came in first. Early 20s, no direction, no structure. The kind of look I recognized immediately. Not lazy, just unanchored. I showed them how to measure, how to cut, how to build something that stayed standing. Simple things. Important things. They kept coming back. That was enough. 3 months passed before Kevin called. I didn't answer the first time, or the second, the third time I did. Dad? His voice was different, quieter, not unsure, just aware. I know I don't deserve much of your time, he said, but I'd like to talk. I didn't respond right away. Where are you? He asked. I gave him the address. He showed up the next day, alone. He looked better, not polished, not relaxed, but grounded. Yeah, there was something in his posture now, something that hadn't been there before. Responsibility. I'm working, he said simply, paying things off, slowly. I nodded. I should have stepped in earlier, he added. I should have said something. Yes, I said. We stood there in the workshop, surrounded by tools and unfinished wood. No pressure, no expectations. Then he said it. I'm sorry. Not rushed, not defensive. Just clear. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I nodded once. I know. That was enough. Forgiveness doesn't always need words, but it does need distance. Emily didn't come. But a week later, I received a short message. Thank you for not letting us stay the same. No excuses, no justification, just that. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Some things are understood without conversation. That evening, I locked up the workshop and stepped outside. The air was cool, the sound of the ocean steady in the distance. I stood there for a moment, looking out toward nothing in particular. For the first time in a long while, everything felt exactly as it should, not fixed, not perfect, just balanced. I never thought one quiet night could change everything. No shouting, no revenge, just one decision, to stop being taken for granted. So now I want to ask you, if you were in my place, would you have stayed and endured for the sake of family or walked away to protect your dignity? Was I too harsh for taking everything back? Or was it the only way they would ever understand? And what would you choose? Keeping peace at any cost, or setting boundaries even if it changes everything? I don't think there's a perfect answer, but I do believe every choice reveals who we really are. Tell me honestly, what would you have done? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If my story made you think, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because there are many more real, powerful stories like this coming next. Let's keep going, together.